Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, back with you here, Mike Alexander, and Jonathan Wilson's not with us tonight, but I am joined on the telephone here with Josh Jacobs. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
All right, great. Hey, while I've got you up on the microphone, if someone wants to be part of the program tonight, we hope that you do. What number should they call?
It's toll-free 866-870-5752. That's 866-870-KRLA.
You got it. So we hope that if any of you fathers are sitting around there tonight, as somebody finally gave you some peace and quiet, and you find something interesting to talk about, just give us a holler here. We'd love to talk to you.
Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. And Jeff was kind enough, the best board man in the business in here, was kind enough to wish me Happy Father's Day. And we did. Did you visit with your dad today?
Actually, yesterday. He lives out in the desert, and we had some Heber National hot dogs grilled on the grill for lunch, and then for dinner, my sister and her friend Shannon grilled some steaks and some veggies. It was really delicious.
It didn't get any better than that. I love the hot dogs, too. Well, two of my four sons are on the East Coast, and the other two were out here today with their children, and we had a great evening. Great day. It was, really a beautiful day here in Southern California, and I was torn because I love being with my family, but also love being with all of you here on Sunday night. We have so much to talk about. I think one of the first things that we really want to talk about tonight is fatherhood itself and the terrible damage has been done to the whole concept of fatherhood. It has been an institution that has been in decline for the last 50 to 75 years, particularly with the increase in divorce in families and the abdication of the parental roles that has happened in so many cases. When we know how the courts operate. Very often husbands use it as an excuse to become irresponsible. Sometimes many husbands refuse to shoulder the responsibilities of the marriage, refuse also to shoulder the responsibilities of fatherhood, and they abandon their children behind them. This has a terrible effect on them. And very often, of course, because men so frequently abandon their wives and children, it encourages the court to decide so many things in favor of the mother as the presumed somehow natural custodial parent for the children and give her all the control. And she often abuses that authority and that unique position to deny visitation, to minimize the role of the father. And then, of course, she'll bring in another man into the home, often because she's been abandoned. Please, I don't need wives calling here. Say, well, the man ran out. I just got through saying that the man runs out sometimes. And, in fact, very often, and the wife is left with the kids, and she will sooner or later, after the divorce, remarry, and there'll be another man in the home who will be supplanting the role of the father. These kinds of conflicts are terrible. And then when we look at what happens in the schools, which further attacks men as somehow being the source of all evil, this terrible sexually aggressive creature. We go off on the Me Too movement and 100 other false formulations of our social condition, blaming everything on men. And it's not designed so much to vindicate women or make them innocent in the matter, what the real purpose of this kind of social approach or cultural language is actually to destroy the family. We're well on the way to the destruction of the American family. And right now, the American family and the parents, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers who are trying to hold it all together are doing so in the face of a massive cultural attack, much of it carried out in the schools in the name of diversity or in the name of tolerance. They teach the children that are things that are antithetical to the whole idea of marriage and the family. For example, by characterizing certain relationships as marriage and being reluctant to even to declare that the relationship between real men and real women, which is procreative, that is able to produce children, suggests that that's not a real marriage or that's not the only marriage. It is, in fact, the only marriage that is possible. It is not that the other relationships are impossible. I know that many of them happen in friendship or civil unions or whatever, but the only true marriage can be between men and women. And to the extent that you teach anything contrary to that, you are teaching that somehow the man in that child's life is far less important because that man's role in that child's life has been replaced either by another man or has been replaced by a welfare check. In either case, that father is exiled, and then, of course, everybody having exiled him from the home, then they wonder why these children who are growing up without fathers become absolute monsters, and that's especially the boys. But the boys and the girls both desperately need the influence of a father in their life, and in fact, what they really need more than anything else, and what they benefit from more than anything else, is an intact family. And this broken, we used to call these broken homes, and they are indeed broken homes. Anyone that's ever had anything to do with, with divorces, now insidiously referred to as family law, when it's really about the breaking up of the family law. The law relating to the breaking up of a family. But anybody who's ever had any contact with this will know that what a terrible thing it is to break these homes up. Leads directly to drug dependency, lack of performance in school, and to other sexual dysfunctions of their own later on. Josh, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, the government oftentimes messes things up more than they help, really, if you think about it.
Yes.
After slavery was abolished, they said to black couples, well, if you want to get married, fine, but you must purchase a marriage license. Then they said that also to interracial couples. If you want to get married, fine, but you have to purchase a marriage license. Then they realized, you know what, we can rip everybody off and made everybody purchase marriage licenses. So a lot of people say, well, this has its roots in racism, that has its roots in racism. The marriage license does have its roots in racism. Mm-hmm. And that's why we need to get the government, in my opinion, out of the marriage business. That should have never been involved in the marriage business in the first place.
Right. And now, when you look at it, it tracks relationships. I'm not even sure why they do it, because so many of these things can be secretly recorded in any event. And that, of course, is a subject for another day. But what we cannot deny is the pernicious, terrible role that the government plays in the undermining of the family as a whole, and particularly, the role of the father, who is treated by the system and often by judges as some type of an aggressor. And he's really somebody to be managed, and we encourage him just to butt out of the family, just send the check. And now that child support check, now in most places in the country, no longer goes to the wife. She never sees that check. Personally, she never sees it coming in from the father of the child. That money is collected by an agent of the government, who, of course, in many cases is already giving her welfare. But now they collect every alimony and child support check through the county, and they send the money to the divorced spouse. And what's the net result? everybody thinks that everything in this world comes from the government, and they're encouraged to go to the polls and to vote that way as well. So that what was the name of that character that the Obamas worked on, or the Clintons? It was Diana or
Julie.
some,
Yeah,
who?
it was Julie.
Julie, yeah.
Julie was the character that, she had an out of wedlock child, and it was kind of this. She never had the father actually involved in her kids' lives.
Yes.
And so the interesting thing you mentioned that is that, there are cases, there are situations where the husband is right, the wife is wrong, the wife is abusive, the husband's not abusive. But the problem is that, like you said, it gets stereotyped, it's always the guy's fault. But there are situations where it is the lady's fault.
Oh, there's no
I've talked
question,
with friends,
yeah.
about that. I've had friends who have had that situation before, and the kids are on his side because they knew that he was right. Like, for instance, I knew a friend, I'm not going to mention who it is, but his wife was unfaithful for years, and got to the point where she was pulling a gun on him. Thankfully the gun jammed, but the thing was that he says, I didn't want to see my kids have a mom that went to jail or
Sure.
arrested. He says, I wished I had done that looking back at it all.
Yes.
I wished I'd done that.
Yeah. And I don't think that anybody out there listening, or very few people out there listening, think otherwise. Of course, the bad behavior on women percentage-wise is probably a lot less than it is among men when it comes to physical abuse. But I want to get to continue to emphasize the deleterious role played by the state. Now, last week you may have noticed a poll that came out, and of course these polls are coming out of the woodwork now with the never-ending presidential campaign. We're not even done with the last election, and we've got 20 of these clowns running on one side and Donald Trump on the other. It's crazy. But in any event, they ran this poll, and I think it was something like women 17 through whatever, by a majority or almost a majority, embraced and approved of socialism. Now, why do you suppose that's the case? Why do you think that they would favor it more than anybody else? And the answer, to answer my own question, is very simple in my judgment. It means that they don't need men. They don't have to rely upon men. Now, they've come to perceive men as unreliable. They have perhaps come to see that marriages cannot hold, they cannot last. And so instead of looking to a man, looking to a marriage, looking to becoming part of a larger familial structure that can help support and sustain them and their family, they're turning to the government. And this was exactly what they were trying to do with this Julia campaign here many years ago, that a lot of us couldn't believe that they were doing it, but they launched it. It was quite effective with young women, and for a while they ran that thing. They even had that crazy nutty gal who was in law school, who was in there in Congress, claiming that that the government needed to somehow pay for her birth control. Remember that gal?
Oh, yeah. Sandra Fluke was her name.
Yeah,
and,
Fluke.
She was in Congress, and she ran for state assembly about 5 years ago, lost the Democratic primary. Who knows where she is these days.
Yeah.
But, she was saying that the college should pay for her own birth control.
Right.
And my question in that survey, because, oftentimes when they ask people about socialism, they like it.
Sure.
You dig down deeper, and they don't know what socialism is about when you look at it, because they're at the same time favoring socialism, quote unquote.
Yes.
They're also favoring competition among companies. They favor, pro small business. Let's break the chains from small business. So I'm kind of curious about what percentage of those ladies are actually true diehard socialism.
Sure.
And then what you call kind of semi-socialism.
Well, I think that if you dig down into the particular programs, you would find that among these women, many of them come out of a 50% divorce rate over the last, 30, 40 years? I forget when it was. The divorce rate is actually starting to come down a little bit. But the reality of divorce in the experience of young men and women cannot be disputed. And so many of these youngsters have grown up with nothing but a government check coming into their homes to support them, or whatever you want to call that lifestyle at that point, their existence. But there, the government is perceived as the savior. And so right then and there, they're conditioned to believe the government is good, completely ignoring where the money actually comes from, and too often encouraged to believe that the father has nothing to do with the family's welfare, that is somebody else. And they destroy and undermine the family, but also condition a lot of young women to believe that in their life they're not going to be able to rely on a man. They're going to have to rely upon a welfare check. They're going to have to rely upon the government. And that experience, which first manifested itself in the black community back in the 60s and 70s, now characterizes all communities. I doubt that there's much percentage variation in number of divorces or welfare in whites or Anglos of the same economic classification or stratum as there is among black or Latinos. I think it's just a terrible thing. So the socialism business has built a strong foundation, not only in the schools, but also in the divorce experience, the welfare experience. You combine those two together, and you begin to have an explanation of why so many Democrat candidates are starting off with 48 or 49%, and then steal, lie, and hustle their way with vote harvesting or ballot harvesting, whatever they call it, voter fraud. They do all of these things to move from 48 or 49 to 50.1. But as we've discussed here on the show before, the more interesting and compelling question is, how did they move from 0 to 48? Well, we just discussed and answered that. And the answer lies in the deliberate destruction of the family and the substitute of the state in the place instead of the father.
I'd also say our failure to make the argument, make the case for why we need to give people a hand up, not just a hand out.
Sure.
And the thing is that I think we as the Republican Party has done a terrible job of saying, look, small private charities do a much better job of giving people a hand up, not just a hand out, than government ever has or ever will do.
Yeah.
They've not emphasized that enough.
Yeah, no, they haven't. But by the way, if anybody wants to get involved in this conversation, tell me I'm nuts. The number is 866-870-5752. I can't imagine that there's universal agreement out there, but maybe there is in this wonderful audience. I want to pick up that last point. The fact is that there is, you'd mentioned that private charities do a lot better job, the hand up rather than a handout. Yes, we know these things, but as a matter of fact, when we look at the press out there and at public opinion and government, there's actually no real interest in solving the problem. They're quite willing to talk about the problem as long as it entails one of their solutions. And their solutions will always be larger government, greater regulation, and above all, higher taxes, and and that begins with the continued dependency of the clients of government, and that would be the homeless person, that would be the divorced spouse, the so-called single mom. I don't. Do we ever really talk about being single dads? No, single mom. It is uttered reverentially, practically by the politicians. a complete exclusion of the father. And then, of course, we have fathers running around trying to, to avoid this whole thing and taking advantage of women or the man and the woman both engaging in a relationship outside marriage, which very often results in a child, and then both walk away from the relationship. And now there never was a marriage to start with. There was in the beginning only the desire for personal satisfaction and the government there to pick up the pieces, So but what we're talking about, government and government failures and their lack of desire to solve any problems. Let's talk about this homeless fiasco that we have here in Los Angeles. Now, as you all know, here a few weeks ago, it made national news. Garcetti and the rest of that clown show down there in the city of Los Angeles managed to get himself sued by legal representatives of the homeless.
Mayor wreck our city.
Yeah, exactly. Remember here, I was bagging on this guy, about a year ago, when this guy was actually taking a tour around the country, pretending that he was somehow presidential material. Do you remember that?
And then he ended up, the poll that was taken, he was only ahead of Michael Avenatti among the Democrat potential candidates.
Right. Well, what's, really, I mean, it's unbelievable. But this guy, what was most remarkable about Avenatti is that one of the ultimate never-Trumpers, George Will, actually commented in one of his columns here about a year and a half ago, commented that this was a guy who ought to be heard. Right? and George...
Is the glue on his toupee getting through his brain or something?
I don't know. We got to talk to him. It must have been one of those long, dark nights between the World Series and the first day of spring training. As you know, that's what he characterizes football, right? He's not a football fan. He is the ultimate baseball fan. But it must have happened during that winter solstice there. But this guy went nuts, and Garcetti is obviously a very modest man, as Winston Churchill once said, with much to be modest about. And his complete mismanagement of the city is remarkable. But then again, what does the mismanagement consist in primarily here? Note that what they're trying to tag him with: failure to manage the homeless crisis. Hey, there's no consensus in any large city in this country for actually addressing the so-called homeless crisis. Congress hasn't done anything about it. The state legislature hasn't done anything about it. It is what it is, and I don't think that there's any constituency among the ruling class. We're talking about bureaucrats, Democrats, Republican whiners, and go-alongs who have cooperated in this mess, and we now have what we used to call Hoovervilles, which we need to call Obamavilles. All over the state. This is absolutely incredible, and now we can't even remove these people from public properties. And in fact, I'm given to understand that somehow, some way, I think we're buying more property in downtown Los Angeles so that we can bring in more homeless people and I guess deliver services to them more effectively and efficiently. By having them all in one place. It is, of course, absolutely ridiculous because some people declare themselves homeless, and now all of a sudden they're part of a victim class. Well, look, that music that you hear means that we're at the end of the first half hour here. When we come back to after the break here, We'll talk with Dave from Whittier and hear what he has to say on the subject. If you'd like to be part of it, you can call us at 866-870-5752. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Back with you in a moment.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, we are live. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Mike Alexander, your host, and here with Josh Jacobs here this evening. We continue our conversation here. If you'd like to be part of that conversation, and we'd love to hear from you, call 866-870-5752. All right, so we were talking about the homelessness problem, which has led to a some type of a movement here in Los Angeles to recall Garcetti, which I don't think will be effective at all, because the unions and everybody else have got their special deals with this guy, and they're not going to let it happen. If we were serious about these problems, we wouldn't have elected this clown to start with. The city of L.A. Makes money, like all of government, makes money off of these things. In any event, we've got Dave from Whittier on line one. Dave, you want to weigh in on this. How are you this evening?
Hey, how are you doing? Hi, Mike.
I'm doing great.
Okay, I've got a huge thing everybody can do. In October, a conservative-leaning Ninth Circuit candidate was nominated and appointed.
Yes.
Okay, by the Senate.
Yes.
Then, in March, I contacted Martha McSally's office to see if she could help us get a movement going in the Senate, urge them to get these people nominated. I learned March 28th, another one was confirmed. They went ahead, and guess who welcomed that one? Martha McSally, who I called.
Mm-hmm.
Then, lo and behold, you guys, this is huge. There are 3 more. I called Martha McSally's office again and found out there are 3 more. And that means, and by the way, there is an article up online that I found says Ninth Circuit. They're even saying it's conservative now, but I don't think so.
Oh, no.
But if we get the 3, look, everybody, this is what you need to do, because we know the Ninth Circuit is causing the homeless problem because they've caved to the ACLU. Now here's what we can do.
Right.
Everybody, you need to contact Lindsey Graham. He's changed. He's good at an about-face. That guy's getting real good. Contact him and urge him to get the nomination process going for these 3 and get them confirmed, because that's going to really make a huge difference for us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your suggestion, Dave, and I'm going to comment on this after our next caller, Mel in Van Nuys, line 3. How are you?
Yeah, I wanted to make a distinction and keep this thing simple.
Yeah. Well, which thing? Whoa. What thing?
Well, let me explain it. People that have a high propensity to vote Democratic are generally dependent people.
Yes.
People that vote Republican are independent. And that's how you distinguish this. I think you should keep it as simple as you possibly can. Now, our big problem with immigration started at the beginning of the 20th century. We brought in under 14 million people through Ellis Island. Then we had a 41-year immigration timeout from 1924 to 65.
Right.
Then when Senator Ted Kennedy started up immigration again, the flaw in his model was he brought in a demographic that had a high propensity to vote Democratic.
Right. Well, there's no flaw in his in his proposal is
Oh,
quite
no, it's actually
intentional.
not a flaw. That was
Right.
a misstatement. But
Right.
my point is that I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
My point is what this is going to do. Hitler couldn't take us out. Stalin couldn't take us out. 500,000 deaths in the Civil War couldn't. But if we lose checks and balances, that could take us out. Average democracy lasts 17 years. We're at 243.
right.
And so if we lose our checks and balances, because if they have a high propensity to vote Democratic, that'll put the Republican Party out of business.
Yes.
And we won't have that checks and balances. This is what Abraham Lincoln ran into. He was a Whig.
Yeah,
And that party went out of business.
Yeah, I
And it
have
was replaced by the Republican Party.
right. Well, let's put it this way. I think that the institution that has collapsed is the institution of citizenship. I think that is the one that is costing us most dearly. I've used this example many times. What is the chief reason why Californians, why the Republican Party has gone down to defeat in California? I will answer my own question. It is, of course, aggravated by many of the factors that you've outlined, but more than anything else, the Democrat Party, as distinguished from the Republican Party, is much better financed. And they are much better financed because of the public employee unions, whose members, for example, in the California Teachers Association, will contribute $1,000 a year, $20 a week, $83.33 a month for 30 years. Now, Mel, do you know any 1,000 Republicans, much less a group of 350,000 Republicans who are doing the same thing?
Of course not.
Right. Now, Mel, whoa.
Okay.
Let me finish my point. Now, if you had even 100,000 Republicans contributing, and this is a tiny fraction of the number of public employees, if you had even 100,000 registered Republicans contributing $1,000 a year, that would be it would be $100 million per year. Do you think that this state would look like it does if we just invested $100 million a year in conservative issues? The answer must be no. And so the question each of us, I won't put this to you personally, but the question that each of us has to ask, especially if we're calling in on talk radio and talking on talk radio or hosting it like I am, the question is, are we matching that concern with tangible contributions to programs that are taking concrete, effective political action against the problems that we have in our state? That's what we must do. And these other things, the finer points about understanding what underlies Republicanism or Democrat politics is fine and dandy, but it only succeeds, I hope you will agree, that ultimately we have to do something. What do you think about that, Mel?
Well, finance obviously plays a big role in organization.
Yes.
I want to make a comment, though. This last election cycle, Orange County, they lost 7 seats, the Republicans, to Congress.
Right.
I knew that Roybacher was going to lose. He never advertised. They didn't put any money into it. They
Right.
purposely wanted to retire.
Right.
So many of them. You can't let that lead up happen. You've got to be prepared for it.
Well,
And,
I hear that, but that's, and we always say, you have to do it. Well, who's going to do it? That's really up to us citizens. And so this is why I make my continuing call to all of you to support our organization, what we do here, but our concrete actions here, Disqualify School Choice Initiative for November 220. If you don't like that one, support something else. But everybody who's listening to this and moaning, groaning, and complaining must get involved, and you got to be kicking in $1,000, $2,000, or $2,500 a year. We start doing that, Mel, we start to win. Mel, thank you
got to motivate them.
Oh, I'm with you.
Do that through ideas. For example,
Well, what do you mean you motivate? What is more motivating than the fact that California has fallen into complete, that one comment there, yes, what do you mean you got to motivate him? I understand that politicians may have to do it, but it is not some politician's job to motivate me. I'm the citizen. You're the citizen. What do you mean sitting back here and saying, oh, if you just said it this way, you just said it that way, I might have voted for you. Nonsense, Mel. I don't buy that.
Trump did.
Huh?
What do you think Trump did? He motivated people. And the point is that it takes a certain idea, an understanding, it hits your mind, and you become motivated, and you want to take action on it. And that's
what motivates you, and what has motivated you to take action?
Oh, a lot of things. Prop 187.
Okay,
that
was 30 years ago.
Well, you asked me a question, I'm telling you.
Right.
That motivated me.
Right.
It was obvious.
How about school choice? Does that motivate you?
Absolutely. I
Fantastic.
think you're doing a terrific job.
Great, because that's what we're working on, because that attacks the citadel of the left and half of the state budget. And that's why we'd like you and anybody else listening to the show tonight to go to schoolchoice2020.org and make your pledge, because we have to go after these people, hit them where they live. Thank you, Mel, for calling. Next up, we have line 2. I think Pamela was on first. Pamela, how are you this evening from Culver City?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
Great. What's going on?
I don't know if you heard, but just this past week, have you heard of Diamond and Silk?
Yes, I know who they are. Yeah, wonderful gals.
Yes, and they had a Diamond and Silk bill passed this past week with the help of Stephen King to address the homelessness and veteran issue in California and all over the country, and to also deal with sanctuary cities, to use a fund that they're using for sanctuary cities to put towards the homelessness and the veterans that are on the street. So I was wondering if you heard about that.
Well, I did, and I think that was something that was specifically geared to veterans, and there seemed to be an unusual number of veterans, and have been for years. And this seemed to have started mostly during the Vietnam War and just after. Lot of veterans out there, and we should take care of our veterans. There's no question about it.
Right, but that's their points, that why is all this money going towards the sanctuary cities and towards illegal aliens when our own citizens...
But let me... I totally agree with you on that. But let me also say, though, that just because you are a veteran who has encountered difficulties or maybe even end up on the streets because of those difficulties, we cannot abandon the standard to be met. That is, we must find his homelessness and his behavior as a homeless person unacceptable at two levels. Yes, I know that behavior may be beyond his control. If so, we need to find that out. But I think you will also agree with me that there's tons of people who have just decided to pursue that life, don't want to pursue work, don't want to do anything to support themselves, but sit there and collect one or more government checks and decide to live on the streets and defecate where they live. Now, I hope you'll agree with me that regardless of how you got there, that is an unacceptable situation, and we as a society have to say, hey, look, you can't do that in our city, and don't tell me you're a victim of this, that, or the next thing. That is intolerable. Would you agree with me about that?
Oh, yes, I agree with you 100%. No, people need to be responsible for themselves.
Correct. Individual responsibility lies at the very core of our democracy, and many people in government are trying to, how about most of the the government trash are trying to persuade us that we can't take care of ourselves, and excuse me, we can't take care of ourselves. We need some government dunce to take care of us. That's nonsense. But you and I agree about the veterans, and I think we agree about the rest of them. Thank you, Pamela, for calling. And next we go to Carlos from Carson. How are you this evening?
Fine. Very well. Thank you. Just had a very nice dinner for Father's Day.
Well, Happy Father's Day to you. I know that you called to talk about Iran, but you're a man. I assume that you, like me, your father. We both grew up or spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. I spent a lot of time talking about fatherhood earlier at the top of the show, and I was wondering if you had any particular reaction to that, positive or negative.
Well, no, I didn't quite hear what you said, but fatherhood is being taken out of the home. Although I do want to talk about Iran, if you just
go ahead. Go ahead.
But and then I'll talk about fatherhood. But listen, we got to be very careful to not fall into the propaganda, the false flags that are being foisted upon the American people again about Iran being involved in all these episodes, because we got the neoconservatives in our government who want to expand the war in the Middle East to include Iran. We got Bolton, Pompeo, and I hate to say it, but Trump is also
all right.
in the same category.
Okay, Carlos. Hey, Carlos. Hey, I'm losing you there, Carlos. Are you there?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there we are. I got you back. Okay. Carlos, I want to stop you and just go back to the very beginning. If I understand what you're saying, you're concerned that a false crisis is being created by certain people whom you've referred to as neoconservatives in order to gin up a war against Iran and expand our presence there. Is that correct?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
I got it. Okay, now let me start just somewhere else, because I'm always cautious in these areas like you are. I don't want to jump out there, but let's talk about what we know about Iran. Iran for years had moderated to some extent under the Shah. Many people will disagree with that characterization, I understand, but at least they had attempted some kind of a civilian government. Then we had the mullahs come in, Khomeini or whatever. They've got so many guys the same name, it's hard for me to pronounce them right. But what happened was there was a reimposition of Sharia law and a theocracy put into place. They of course took our hostages, held on to them until Ronald Reagan swore in, but they have never ceased to be hostile. They were at war with Iraq for years. They have called us constantly the great Satan and the little Satan, Israel, sworn to destroy us, sworn to destroy Israel. Are you suggesting that they're lying?
No, what I'm suggesting is that people do not know some of the hidden history that occurred.
Well, I want to back you up. Okay, I got you.
Expand on that a little bit. Hold on. The Ayatollah Khomeini, from which the Iran Revolutionary Guard was came about, the radical Islamic
right.
Iran Revolutionary Guard, which is making all these hostile statements. The Ayatollah Khomeini was one of the founders of that.
Well,
he was a secret CIA British Mossad agent. See, what people do not understand, there are military-industrial complexes.
Well, is Iran a bad actor? Hey, Carlos, slow down. Now, is Iran a bad actor or not?
No, the whole thing is being right now.
Okay, so you've said that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards were basically put together in a conspiratorial fashion by the United States CIA and by the Israeli Mossad, right?
The Israeli and British MI6.
Okay, right. Now, I disagree with that. Yeah, I disagree with that, but I don't know how they got started. But right now they're making these threats. And what Carlos is telling me and everybody else out there is that we should not believe Iran, that they're just out there blowing steam, and this nuclear project of theirs is so much BS, and we don't have any reason to fear them. Saudi Arabia is wrong, and Iran is right. Carlos, I don't buy it. I don't put it past some people to try to gin up a justification for a war where none existed. We've seen this happen before. We saw it happen in Vietnam, with the Gulf of Tonkin incident and so forth. We've seen a lot of this stuff, but I think Iran is a very serious problem. I don't think the Obama administration took it anywhere near serious enough. These guys are playing footsie with the Germans. They're building bunkers so far down under. We're not sure that we can get it. I think that these guys are up to no good, and I think that they're the ones who mined those used limpet mines on those vessels, and they've done this before. And I think that Donald Trump is quite right. He hasn't been that aggressive. He hasn't opened up any new fronts. He's been trying to scale back Afghanistan and Iraq. He is the guy who doesn't believe in this. Now, maybe you think someone's trying to trick him into it, but I don't think he's the man to be tricked. I think that these Iranian guys are up to no good, and if they sink one more boat out there, they might find that the U.S. Navy, when they're done with them, there won't be anything floating in Iran, not even a rubber ducky in a bathtub in Tehran. That's what's going to happen to those guys.
What I'm trying to say is that the mullahs are a certain faction that acts as agent provocateurs, making all these bad statements so that we can have an excuse to go to war against them.
Well, I got you.
They're actually
Carlos,
under the auspices of the British MI6, CIA, and Israeli Mossad. Military-industrial complex needs convenient enemies.
Hey, Carlos. Hey, time out. You said it 3 times. We got your point. Carlos, it's always great to hear from you. Happy Father's Day. I got to run to another caller. Hope I'll hear from you again. We now have Sam from Encino. How are you this evening, Sam?
Fine. Thanks for asking. The point I want to talk about is trying to true the vote.
Yes.
So that hopefully we can regain a blocking minority in the state Senate and state Assembly, and regain some of those congressional seats in Orange County.
Yes.
I don't believe that. I think in one of those seats where the winner of the lottery, who won $250 million and put in something like $9 million into his own campaign, who won in I think it was Northeast Orange County.
Right.
That I can understand, but the others, I don't buy, especially since.
Hey, Sam, are you ready to agree with me? Are you? I got 2 minutes to go, Sam. Are you ready to agree with me that we need to start putting the blame on citizens?
Not quite.
Why?
No.
Why?
Because of the enormous amount of non-citizen legal and illegal voting that's been set up structurally by the Democrats.
We know that. When did? Hey, Sam. When did we not know that?
Oh, I don't. I think we didn't know that in 2016.
Yeah, we did. Come on.
No,
illegal voting. Illegal voting has been a problem on the Democrat side since Tammany Hall. All right.
No. But this has gone on steroids, and it was put in.
Yeah. So what?
You see, a legal structure put in place where they allowed ballot harvesting. That's recent legislation.
Yeah, but
they allowed ballot harvesting.
Have you been? Hey,
And there's
Sam.
a school-
Sam, okay, you and I got some things to sort out, so I want you to hold on if you can past the break in the top of the hour. Maybe we can continue this conversation. Can you hang on? Hello? Okay, Sam, if you can hear me out there, just hang on. We'll get back to you. Mike Alexander, over and out.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Hey, everybody. Yes, this is Radio Free Los Angeles, coming to you from the Glendale studios of KRLA, AM 870, The Answer. And if you'd like to be a part of the show, and we'd love to have you, call us, please, at 866-870-5752. And if you like this kind of radio and you want to keep it going, you got a couple of places to go. You can go to schoolchoice2020.org or to radiofreelosangeles.net and click the donate button. Remember, this is listener-sponsored, more importantly, citizen-sponsored radio. It's up to you to keep this program moving. We do our part. We could sure use a little help. Now, I'm going to, before I get back with Sam from Encino, I want to say a quick word to thank my friend Matt Peterson. Last week from the Claremont Institute, I got a lot of great feedback personally from his 1-hour interview there on the American Mind. And so if you if you're interested in that topic, be sure to go to theamericanmind.org. It's a wonderful website there. Just Google it out there. Now, right now, I'd like to return to Sam from Encino. Sam, we were talking about the problems with elections here in here in California, particularly the debacle that was Orange County. Much of it occurred, of course, because of ballot harvesting and other techniques permitted under California law. And things are actually about to get worse here in Los Angeles County. But at any rate, I'm not sure whether I was talking to you but why don't you pick it up again?
Well, no, the point is that, remember, you have an enormous recent increase in first-generation immigrants, legal and illegal,
yes,
especially in California,
yes,
where 1 out of every 4 people in this state are new immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
They came right off the boat, or they walked across the border, or whatever,
right,
how they got here. Okay, and so and because of with the DMV handling voter registration, where you go in there,
right,
where you go in there for any business, and
right,
you automatically register the vote, and you have this new ballot harvesting tactic.
Yes.
And it is new because there was recent legislation that empowered it. Okay.
Yes.
And other problems that are going on that are relatively new.
Right.
You have this enormous increase in non-citizen voting. And
yes,
so the only way to attack it is you're going to have to go to the courts like Judicial Watch did. Remember when they kicked off 1 million voters off the voting rolls,
yeah,
in Los Angeles County? They have to take the next step and say that, if you're a non-citizen and if you have registration mechanisms that are so blatantly fraudulent, right, that they allow massive non-citizen voting, that those registration mechanisms are outlawed.
Who is going to do this, Sam?
Thrown out, and you're going to have to do that through the court.
Sam, we understand that's part of it. Okay, now
that's part of it. But I want to get to a second point. The second point is that immigration officials who are doing the naturalization process, they have a lot of discretion as to saying who's a citizen and who isn't. So, for example, an elderly Filipino lady who doesn't speak, read, or write English, he says, well, you've been here long enough, okay, you're a citizen. Or a caller, an immigration official calling into Mark Levin says, yeah, we have people who have admitted to voting in federal elections even though they were not citizens.
Yes.
That has tightened up, and that the Trump administration can do unilaterally because they control that and say, that there are certain requirements they have to meet, period. If they found that they voted in the past, they're out the window. They may even be deported. If they can't read, write, and speak English in an intelligible manner so that they can't fill out a civics test in English, and they take the oath in English, and they do the interview
Sam.
in English,
Sam.
they're not citizens.
Sam,
so
we're there. Hey, Sam.
I think we should be able to get back be able to recapture some of those state assembly, state senate, and federal congressional districts.
All right, now, are you ready for some reality out there, Sam?
Yeah, sure.
I understand everything that you're saying. I agree with it. I know Linda Payne with the Election Integrity Project. I know everything out there. These are all things that must be done. Now, it's interesting that at the end, and you said the right thing. At the end, you said, hey, we have to go back and take these seats back. Now, that's a different kettle of fish because we are working in an environment. Now, I'm not making excuses for this. I'm trying to explain the phenomenon, and that's why I'm trying to rebuild citizenship here. Those seats are not just going to be taken back. We have a broken Republican Party here. We don't have our number one problem in the Republican Party and with conservative political action in general is the lack of a viable revenue model. We don't have a business model. The Democrats do. And so what we need to focus on most is we seek the solution of this problem is not what Democrats are doing or how they're doing it, because we know. We also know what needs to be done, at least by if we can get somebody elected, to stop this behavior. Much of it, of course, on the immigration side is ultimately up to the Trump administration. But over here on our side, we have to get people elected, and that means that individual Republicans, individual concerned citizens are going to have to step up to the plate and start spending more money on politics than they ever had individually. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Well, I somewhat disagree in that the Democrats, because they had outside resources that far outstripped the Republicans, such as Michael Bloomberg dumping in money, and
you see with that
and Tom Steyer dumping in money.
I'm telling you, and I've been through this. You see, this is where Republicans and conservatives go. Whenever I point out the reality, then they immediately point out how it's futile, how resistance is futile, because they have so much of that money out there and we could never compete. And that's why the Republican Party is dead here in this state, because the Republican Party has refused to face up to the fact that they don't have a revenue model. It is not Steyer. It is not Soros. It is Sally. And who is Sally? Sally is that first-year teacher who the first thing that she did the first day of school was to sign up with the California Teachers Association and to pay $1,000 a year for the next 30 years. It's Sally, not Soros. And unless we understand that fact, I want you to meditate on it, Sam. I have. I've been at this for many, many years, and I can tell you that's where the problem is, because we don't do that. I just got through talking with Mel here from Van Nuys just a few minutes ago. Maybe you heard her. We had the same conversation. Would this state look like it does? We have 5 million Republicans in the state, Sam, 5 million. And if those 5 million contributed $100 each, just $100, it'd be $500 million in this state. Would this state look like it does if Republicans were contributing $100 a year? That's the solution, Sam. That is the solution. That is the solution. The reason we're losing elections, not arguments, Sam. We know what to do, but Republicans have been persuaded that there's we got to go out there and get Judicial Watch. We got to get this. We got to get Trump to come to California, don't you know? None of it ever involves the individual citizen as being the guy or the gal who's actually responsible for this. And I'm telling you that this blame rests squarely upon the shoulders of us citizens who have failed to organize. This is a democracy. It still is. We can change this. We don't have to put up with this. But right now, the public employee unions are collecting over $1 billion, and they're using it with ruthless efficiency. What do Republicans do? They call talk shows. That ain't going to cut it. Oh, Trump can do this. Oh, Judicial Watch can do that. That is not going to cut it. And I hope that you'll forgive me, Sam, for being so blunt. I
forgive you, but
yeah.
But the point, I think focusing just on money, for example, the Republican Party could go and challenge those provisional ballots.
Well, they could, but they don't have revenue. They're not going to do it. Hey, Sam, thank you for calling. I look forward to our next call. In the meanwhile, I want to take Brent from Los Angeles on line 1.
Hello, Mike and Josh.
Brent, how are you this evening?
Very good. I wanted to wish you a happy and a blessed Father's Day.
Thank you.
And
are you a dad?
Unfortunately, no.
No. Well,
I'm not either. So,
thank you for your good wishes. Appreciate it. What do you have for us tonight, Brent?
Yes. Well, I wanted to just follow up on your idea on the progressive drive to destroy fatherhood, motherhood, and family.
Yes.
Through becoming the parent, and this wicked collective of California attempts always and only to conquer the citizens of California. And communism, it actually cuckolds the whole idea of fatherhood. It murders motherhood, and socialism attacks all of God's prescriptions and 3,000 years of Western civilization's evidence and proof and success of the blessing that is Bible-based family.
Yes.
And so
they do. It supplants the family with the state, and yet, I was at all of my fellow alumni from USC will forgive me, I hope, but I was at a UCLA graduation yesterday. But that graduation was like so many others. There were several hundred students there graduating from the psychology department, a favorite topic of yours, including my granddaughter, Holly. Congratulations out there, Holly. But, what's the secret of success? The secret of success is exactly what you saw there in spades, and that is families. It was families that raised them up, families that got them into UCLA, families that helped them get through UCLA, families that were there when they graduated. Families are the most powerful economic, the family is the most powerful economic institution in the world, not government. It's the family. It's bound together by love, by affection, by nature, by common need, and, of course, blessed by Almighty God when it's undertaken. The marriage and the family, there's a commitment to each other, and no government, no welfare check can ever substitute for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and perhaps one day when we have time, we can talk about this pathology of psychology in America. And because psychology is absolutely essential, but what is passing now, or being labeled psychology, is just pathological and destructive to everything our civilization stands for.
That's right. It is, and we embrace it. We as citizens pay money for this vast amounts. Half of our state budget goes into K through 12, and you know, no school can operate without a point of view, one way or the other. It is inevitable. And the point of view that the state operates with is, of course, the point of view of the state, of that government entity, not the state of California, but government in general, which sees itself as the solution to any problems. And if there isn't a solution, if there isn't a problem to solve, they, by golly, will create one to solve. And the worst thing that they have done is the destruction of the family, and that's what we're seeing in the black community. And what is the single most destructive act of involved in destroying a family? And that would be abortion, state-funded murder. That's where this whole thing begins. And when you see the damage that's been done deliberately to the family, it's appalling, and it continues this day, and you can't even get the Republican or so-called Republican Party to kill funding for Planned Parenthood. Somebody has shut the damn thing down. But out here, we citizens are going to have to man up and woman up and start putting our money together and get things done. And that begins, ladies and gentlemen, with schoolchoice2020.org. You go there and contribute money. I want you all out there to listen to me carefully. Every one of our problems that we're talking about started 100 years ago when we gave the government our children. When we let them take our children from them and teach them what they wanted to, the long downward spiral of America began. And we can only restore America by taking back our children, taking back our money, and thereby taking back the future. Hey, Brent, hang on. Somebody said 1 minute. I'm showing 7 minutes. Okay, good. Because I've got Juan Tierra on here with our Government Grifter of the Week Award. But I want to go back and finish that one sentence. This is what underlies School Choice 2020. We can't take our country back unless we first take back our children. And I know you and Brent, you and I agree on that.
Yeah, and I think it's just important for everybody to be clear that these progressive predators in no way are attempting or even think they're solving a problem. Because if they thought they were, they'd give the solution. All they know is what to destroy, but they do not know what to create.
That's right. They're not creators. It is only parents who are creators. They are procreators. Procreation means they create with each other. They create life on behalf of God, who gave them the power to create, man and woman. And that's the story of civilization. And there's, nobody explains that, who we are and how it all began, more than whoever the Jew was who took down dictation from God in Genesis, right? I was just thinking yesterday, it is God's word, of course, and he tells us how to think about ourselves. It's remarkable. And to the extent that we depart from that fundamental understanding communicated by God himself, we get in trouble. That's for sure. And you as a Jew, I as a Christian, we share that that belief. I know.
And the family, too,
yes.
When one examines it, is the foundation of freedom.
It is.
And communism is the foundation of slavery.
You are right on that. And I'm going to end on that powerful point because, as you know, this is a special time of the week when we do our Government Grifter of the Week Award. Music, Maestro, please. Ba-da-da-dum.
And now it's time for our weekly Government Grifter Award. And here he is, Mizzou Juan Tierra.
How are you, John?
Fine. Good evening, gentlemen.
Thanks
Mike,
for calling in.
Josh.
Well, this is our ever popular segment here where people can call in and really get upset. So, Sam from Encino, wait till you hear this stuff. What do you have for us tonight, John?
Well, your humble researcher for the second week in a row is taking a look at an easy target, the city and county of San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Many people are not aware that this is the only county in the state where a city and a county occupy the same territory, 45 square miles.
That's right.
So you have two bureaucracies bumping into each other. I'm taking all my nominees tonight from those two entities. Our source, back to transparentcalifornia.com, up-to-date figures from 2018.
Right.
Nominee number one, the deputy sheriff with a regular pay of $105,000, overtime pay of over $300,000.
Oh, wow.
Benefits of $57,000, grand total $490,000, the seventh highest paid employee in the city of 2018.
Unbelievable.
Now the sheriff, that person's boss, makes only $261,000, benefits $61,000, and totals $322,000.
Man.
They also have a chief of police who makes $327,000 with health and benefit package worth $67,000, a grand total of $394,000.
Same zip codes, three different cops.
Nominee number 4. This is the winner. Highest paid person in SF City government 2018, a police officer level 3 with a regular salary of $592,000 with no overtime. How'd you do that? I have no idea.
What?
Benefit? Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it says.
Yeah.
Benefit package $120,000, grand total $712,000.
Amazing.
Now let's summarize. We have a deputy sheriff who nearly tripled his base salary with overtime, and gets more than $168,000 in salary and benefits than the actual sheriff. We have a police officer level 3 who makes nearly $600,000 in regular pay with his benefits. His package is worth more than $318,000 in the chief of police.
Yeah.
I ask rhetorically, does this make any sense?
Well, it does it now.
Dollars and cents.
Okay, now, although you already teased it, let's have the drum roll and the winner here.
Exactly.
Drum roll, please.
Well, it really is pretty obvious. Nominee number 4, police officer level 3, not a sergeant, not a lieutenant, just a police officer at $712,000.
Amazing. Hey, we've only got a minute to go, so I want to explain some of these anomalies. You take the music down, please. I want to explain some of these anomalies, and sometimes this comes out of the so-called DROP program, Deferred Retirement Something
San Francisco
Plan.
got rid of theirs, Mike.
They did,
dropped
yeah.
it.
Yeah, but no pun intended. Yeah. But there were some of them that received some of those settlements, but still in all, even without those special retirement arrangements, the whole damn thing would still be out of control. And this is why our entire state is insolvent. Now, as we come up on the end of the hour, I want to thank all of you out there for listening and participating this evening. It's a vigorous exchanges of opinions, and let's not forget what our secret is here. It is the citizen that is broken. We are the ones who own this country. We can, should, must restore it. I hope you'll join me again next week. Josh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike,
for being
and happy
on here
Father's
tonight.
Day again.
Thank you, and same to everybody out there. You too, John, or Juan. Thank you very much for participating, and we'll see you a week from now. Radio Free Los Angeles, Mike Alexander, over and out.